Hi, this is Craig Tiener for the radiantVista Daily Critique. This image was submitted by Dee, who is an intermediate photographer from Illinois. One of the first things I like here is the moment and the juxtaposition of the energies of these two portrait subjects. You have youth, and then you've got age. You've got, not that this person is old or anything, but you definitely have the sort of the feeling of youth and adult. You have a body language that at the same time is casual and is also about moving in and being a part of the process, and then something that's much more formal and tentative, and you have an open smile here and then an expression that's sort of in between, again kind of muted or held back, and to me that really adds a lot to the story. So just thinking about, in the context of storytelling, how powerful juxtapositions are. The other thing I like is warm on the portrait subject, and then the one color that's sort of dominant in the background is green. So dynamic color separation, flow of focus that helps separation. Dee shot this with an effective focal length of 82 millimeters at f4.5, so sharp here and then focus falls off. That works well. And beautiful soft light on the portrait subjects. One of the things I'd encourage you to think about in the context of today's critique, if you're sort of more of a beginner, intermediate, or I mean really you could be at any level, skill level, because to me learning how to see light is a lifelong process. But not just paying attention to the way the light falls from the source of light, but also paying attention to the way light is bouncing. You know, something that you might do is go out with somebody that you can photograph and stand them on a walkway that's very bright like this and look at the quality of light on their face, and then walk over to, let's say, the street, maybe it's sort of medium gray or black, and look at the quality of light on their face, and then maybe walk over into, you know, a wooded area like this. And if you want to get even more nuanced with it, see if you can see the way colors are changing based on the way the different subjects reflect light, and also the color and how the reflected color of light is having an effect. So just something to think about. This walkway is helping to fill any drop shadows that may be coming from the overhead soft light. Now it works well. The other thing that I'm enjoying here is using the walkway as a framing element. I think it works really well down here. And when I think about perfect world improvement for this one, that's kind of where I start. The walkway as a framing element up here starts to create some mergers. And in a perfect world, I wish the portrait subjects were further back on the walkway so that the walkway could wrap all the way around with separation. You'd obviously still have the merger up here, but you've got warm and cool and potentially light and dark, and that could help the heads and the faces to separate from the trees in the background. If I'm just going to work on this image the way that it is right now, so we're not going to do any major compositing and change the background, I want to ask myself the question, what's the main idea? Because if I'm going to start doing some work, I want to move in a direction relevant to something I'm trying to say, and to me this one is really easy. It's a no-brainer. The main ideas are the two portrait subjects, so how can I make it more about them and less about everything else? One of the things that's happening is a color cast. It's yellow-red, and anytime you have a color cast, it harmonizes or ties everything together, so it does the opposite of creating a separation. I want to get rid of that. And what I did was I just took this image into the raw converter in CS3. The CS3 raw converter will accept other files besides raw files. This is a JPEG. Took it into the raw converter, grabbed the white balance tool. That might make you think that you should click on something that you want to be white, but you'll probably get a better white balance adjustment if you click on something you would like to be medium gray. So I clicked on this stone and then got my adjustment and then brought the image back into Photoshop, and here's that adjustment. So it got rid of a lot of that yellow-red cast that's everywhere. The next thing that I did was add a little bit more blur to the background. So I'm just pushing flow of focus in a direction where hopefully by the background going softer, it'll bring the main ideas forward a little bit more. The next thing that I did was I cloned out some of the high contrast areas around the heads of the two portrait subjects. That's going to keep us from getting pulled past the main idea so much into that background. And the next thing I did was trying to achieve the same goal make the portrait subject come forward, I darkened areas that to me were very bright and high contrast. So there's that layer. Then I did 2 adjustment layers that are sort of part of a lot of people's classic workflow, but I only applied this to the portrait subjects. I did a levels adjustment to set a true white and black point, and I did a curves adjustment to make the mids have more zing and more local contrast within the mid range of tones. But I only applied that to the portrait subjects. So I'm going to essentially leave the background and what's around the portrait subject kind of flat like a digital camera wants to do. And then here's the levels adjustment applied to the portrait subject, and there's the curves adjustment. So here's what we've done so far. So pretty big difference. And then I want to talk about something today that I've mentioned a few times before, but I'm going to talk about it a little bit more today, which is something that I like to do, and you know, there's so many different ways to do things in Photoshop, so please hear me say this is just a way I like to do it, and you can see if it works well for you. A lot of times when I final tweak color, I will use selective color adjustment layers, and I'll literally take the time to go into each color and move the sliders, move all of the sliders. And at first I'll just make big moves to see if anything's happening. If something is happening, I'll see if I like it, and I'll go through each color layer. One way to speed this whole thing up is to just keep one of your fingers over the 0 key on the keyboard so you can quickly get back to 0 with the slider. And if I end up making changes to red, then I will put that on a layer and name it red, and then go all the way through. And when you first start doing this, even if you don't think the image has yellow or green or cyan or blue, I would encourage you to look at all the colors and move all the sliders. One of the things this is going to really help you start to understand, particularly if you're more of a beginner in photography, is color. And the way colors mix and match, it's also really going to help you understand the way Photoshop changes and moves colors. You know, and I just want to show you something here that may be surprising, not to people that have been working in Photoshop, let's say for a long time, but maybe if you're new to Photoshop. I'm going to bring this back up again with that adjustment layer at the top of the stack so that we'll actually get some movement here if I make a change. And let's say that one of the things I wanted to do was get rid of this yellow and the green, and in fact I did end up doing that. Why would I want to do that? Well, if there's a bunch of yellow in the green, then instead of having a separation, the yellow component of the green is going to harmonize with the yellows that are in my main subject. And so I'm going to be connecting those two, and I don't want to do that. You might think, well, hey, let's go into green and then subtract yellow and move the yellow slider. But not much is happening, right? And that's because one of the things that playing around with selective color will teach you is that so much of the time what you think is green is actually predominantly yellow, and you're going to have to go to yellow and then take the yellow out to make a big change happen. And you can see that it's much more profound now when I go in and remove yellow. And to me, this is just so much more specific. Within each color, you're getting a chance to see what is happening, and color balance isn't as specific as this. I cannot overemphasize how much I use selective color to understand color and to final tweak color. And please don't think that you're just concerned about the colors. You're going to see in just a second how important it can be to go into your whites, neutrals, and blacks and do the same work with all the sliders and see what's happening in there. So let's turn that off. I'm going to throw that layer away. And let's see, did I just lose a layer? I think that I did. Let me see what I just did to myself there. Okay, I'm in good shape now. All right. What I want to do is bring my layers palette in here and show you that I did work with 3 different layers in selective color. So there may be a time when I'll look at a color and move all the sliders and nothing happens, so I just skip it. I ended up working primarily with reds, with the yellows, and with whites. And you can see that I've named the layers so I know what I've done, what color I've worked on. You can also see from the mask that I'm not talking about so much of global changes. It could be that you work with selective color in one color and you apply it globally, but so much of the time I'll end up watching a change and going, boy, I really like it in this one area of the image, and then I'll use my mask to apply it locally. I went into reds and I added more red to the red and more magenta to the red to play the red off of the green. I went into yellows to clean up my green in the background. And I am going to try to go for a look in the background that's more about primary green being lighter and darker. Right now you've got yellow, then green, then dark green, and light yellow, and so on and so forth. So just within the subject of the background itself, it's busy from a color standpoint, and it's also creating this connection that I don't want between the background and the main subject. So there's where I went in, and I made that background a lot more of a primary green. And then watch this. This is really dramatic. This is where I went into the whites. You see, you have white in this image. Let me do something here so I can actually come over here and paint for a second. Let me go to right there. You have white in this image, and you might think, well, yeah, that's a pure